Okay. I don't know. Alrighty. Welcome everybody. I think we're working. Alrighty, welcome everybody to our second sustainability lunch and learn. We're really excited to be able to put on this lunch and learn series all about renewable energy and sustainability over the next several weeks. We are had some wonderful generous funding through Visit Bucks County to put this on. So we're very appreciative of that. Just so everyone knows, I believe next week we are talking all about birds and wind. So that should be a great program as well. We are taking the Wednesday before Thanksgiving off. So if you try and get in that day, there won't be anything there. But other than that, we've got some really great programs coming up and I hope you'll all join us for those. The recording for this will also be up on YouTube within the next few days. So you can rewatch it there, you can share it. So I encourage you to do that. We're really excited today to talk about solar energy because that's been a big part of Bucks County Audubon for the last year or so. As we learned more about it, as we decided to do our own solar project and did our Capture the Sun campaign. We had a great solar tour that we did last year as well that sort of led up to us getting our solar panels in. Our solar panels have been installed. Not everything is completely finished yet, but almost. So we're really excited about that. And we're really, really excited to have the wonderful people that installed our solar array, the wonderful people from Exact Solar. Mark Bortman is here with us, one of the owners, and he is going to do a fabulous presentation all about solar, why it's important, and how you too hopefully can get involved with it. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark thank you so much, Mark, for doing this, and take it away.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Great. Thanks a lot. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Sorry, I'm not a pro here. Let me see. Where it is. There we go. Okay, so thank you, Stacy. Welcome everyone for this Lunch and Learn series. So today, here we go. So what we're hoping to get done today is to explain what the solar photovoltaic systems are and how they work. Photovoltaic system, those are the solar panels that generate electricity. It's what most people think of when they hear solar panels. I'd like to make this interactive as much as we can. So if anyone has questions during the presentation, please feel free to go ahead and ask them. You can use the little chat feature down the bottom and try and get them answered as we go along. So the main components of a solar energy system are the solar panels themselves. What solar panels are made of is a silicone semiconductor, a lot like what computer chips are made of. That's what each of these little squares on a solar panel is. They are made of the layers are silicone semiconductor, and when the sun shines on them, the energy from the sun makes electrons cross a barrier inside the cell, and that causes a direct current electricity. So the direct current electricity from the solar panels comes to a device called an inverter. It either looks like this or like this, and the inverter converts the DC, the direct current electricity from the solar panels, to alternating current, which is what pretty much every building and house uses around here. With the solar panels themselves, there are a few different components. There are the cells themselves, as I mentioned. There is the frame that goes around the outside. The frames are typically either silver, like what are installed at the Audubon Society building, or they're black. Usually for residential installations, we use a black frame just because it matches the roof a little bit better and gives it a little bit more of an aesthetic, streamlined look. At the Audubon Society, we used a silver frame because the roof is gray, and that actually, I think, ends up looking very nice. I do have some pictures that we can show you, so you'll end up seeing what it looks like on the building there. And then the third component is, in this picture that's on the screen, it's the white space behind the solar cells. That is called the backsheet. And we can either get solar panels with a white backsheet or with a black backsheet. For residential installations, when the solar panels are very visible, typically if they're going to go on the front of the roof or someplace else where a lot of people will see them, we will use solar panels that have a black backsheet. That again gives it that nice sleek appearance. It's really just an aesthetic difference. It doesn't change how the solar panels work at all. And I'll get to some pictures of that in a minute. For the inverters, you can see we have two different types here. One that is a box that hangs on the wall. That is what is known as a string inverter. With these types of inverters, the solar panels are wired together, and then the DC electricity comes down to one big, not so big box that hangs on the wall, and that one inverter converts the DC electricity to AC. That is what is installed at the Audubon Society. There's actually 3 of them there. And the other type of inverter is this one here. It's called a microinverter. Although the picture makes it look as big as the one that hangs on the wall, it's actually much smaller. And these get installed underneath the solar panels with one microinverter for each solar panel. And the DC to AC conversion is done right on the roof. There are benefits to each of these different types. So it's on a case-by-case basis which one we recommend for which in type of installation. So the way a system works is typically the solar panels go on the roof of the house or the building. We like to use the roof because that's usually where there's the least amount of shade, and it's space that's not being used anyway. So might as well take advantage of it. So the sun shines on the solar panels convert the sun's energy to direct current electricity. That direct current electricity comes down wires to the inverter. The inverter converts the DC electricity to alternating current, AC. That AC electricity then goes into the building or the house and goes to power anything that needs it at that time. So whatever lights are on, or if your air conditioning is running, or your TV, or anything that's on at that time, the electricity from your solar panels will go to power those things. If there's times during the day that your solar panels are producing more electricity than you need at that time in the house, the extra is going to go back out through your electric meter back to Pico, and you'll get a credit for it. When your solar panels are not producing as much electricity as you need, such as at nighttime, it's going to come in from Pico just like regular. At the end of the month, when you get your electric bill, it will say how much came in from Pico minus how much you sent out to Pico, so that they will calculate the net amount of electricity, and that's all you're billed for. So for example, on this electric bill right here, where it says general service, we had 444 kilowatt hours come in from Pico in this month. And then where it says out, we sent out to Pico 298 kilowatt hours. So if you take 444 minus 298, the net amount this month that we bought from Pico is 146 kilowatt hours. So that's all we're billed for that month. It is possible that you will have months that you produce more than you consume. So if that is the case, you will have a negative kilowatt hours. That Pico calls that as having kilowatt hours in the bank. And so they've got this little box here right on your bill, so you can help keep track of how many kilowatt hours you have in the bank. So if you have a month that you produce more than you consume, you'll have kilowatt hours in the bank, and they will apply that banked amount to your next month. And if the next month you produce more than you consume, then you just get more in the bank until you have a big month where you will consume more than you generated, and that will take those banked kilowatt hours. We aim to have the solar panel, the size of the solar panel system on your roof generate about what you consume in a year, with the idea being that there'll be some months where you produce more than you consume, some months where you consume more than you produce, and at the end of the year, you end up with a zero in the bank. That kind of works out best for financial returns. Pico doesn't really want you having a big overproduction. So we do try to aim to offset 100% of your usage, but not really go over that. In the case of the Audubon Society, we did install a bigger system. So right now it is set to overproduce, but they are planning on adding some additional electric loads for heating and cooling. So we designed the system to take that into account. Here are some pictures of the solar panels. You can see here, these are the all black ones that I mentioned. So the black frame, the black backsheet gives it a nice, sleek, uniform appearance. Here is a picture of the ones with the silver frame that are very similar to the ones that we installed at the Audubon Society. In addition to slope roofs, which is most residents, most houses have the slope roof, we can also install solar panels on flat roofs. When we install them on flat roofs, we have these special racks that hold the solar panels in place. We used ballast blocks, so these cement blocks here, to hold the racks in place, so that way we don't have to make any holes in the roof. People with a flat roof really prefer a system like this to hold it in place. In a residential system, we do attach the solar panels to the roof. There are special flashings that actually slide up underneath the shingles to protect any place where we do have to attach, to make sure that we never have a leak as long as the system is installed. It actually makes it a stronger roof than just the shingle itself, because these flashings are made of aluminum. So we should never have a leak as long as the solar panels are installed. And we've been installing systems for about 15 years and I've never had a leak so far. So fingers crossed that they're doing their job. In addition, if you don't have the roof space, or you don't want the panels on your roof and you do have space on the ground, we can install what is called a ground mounted solar panel system. So it's a series of pipes that have a foundation in the ground, and you mount the solar panels on this rack that's constructed. It can be pretty straightforward utilitarian like this one, or it could be super fancy like this one. Obviously, the fancier it gets, the more expensive it is. There are also options to have the solar panels, what's called tracking the sun. So these examples here are fixed solar panels. The solar panels don't move, but there are racks that will allow the solar panels to track and follow the sun. So they rotate to maximize their productivity. Systems like that are relatively expensive, and they have moving parts, which leads to more maintenance. So we generally don't recommend them, but if you have a very limited space and really want to maximize the production of your solar panels, a tracking system might work out best for you. There are also solar shingles These are small solar panels that lay flat on the roof. They actually serve as the roof itself rather than the shingles. Gives a nice, very sleek appearance. Looks almost like a slate roof. They work great, but they are very expensive. So we do not have a lot of customers with these installed. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. All right, next. So people often ask us, do we have enough sun in this area to make solar panels worthwhile? And you know, what do we need to look for? What are the criteria we look at when we decide how many solar panels to install? So this is a map of solar radiation. We call it insolation, not insolation, insolation. So the amount of sun that we get in the different parts of the country. So right here in Philadelphia, you can see we average right around 4.5 hours of what we call peak sun a day. So that is definitely enough to make solar panels worthwhile. For the longest time, Germany was the leader in solar panel installations in the world. They were recently overtaken by China. But in Germany, they get about the same amount of solar radiation as Seattle. So you can see that that's considerably less than us. And so if it makes sense there, it definitely makes sense here. Certainly in places in Arizona where they get even more sun, it's even better for solar panels, but in this area, it's definitely, we definitely get enough. Okay, so when people are interested in getting solar panels, the first thing we'll do is we have a very detailed aerial photography program where we can take a look at their house or building and determine how many solar panels will fit, what trees or other things around that might cause shade, and get a ballpark idea of what would make sense for that house. So for example, this house, you can see we've got 3 different pictures. They're taken about 6 months apart. So it gives us a very good idea of the orientation of the roof, the size of the roof, and what trees are around and what is going to cause shade during what times of the year. In addition, we will take a look at your electric bill to get an idea of how much electricity you use over the course of the year. So as I mentioned before, we want to try and offset 100% of your usage, but not really go over that amount. So if we take a look at your Pico bill, there's a little chart right at the bottom that shows how much electricity used in the year, and we can project what the solar panels are going to produce. So we take these pictures, and with the program, we can actually make a little map of your roof showing how many solar panels will fit. We can take into account the slope of the roof, the orientation of the roof, and any shade, and come up with a projection of how much electricity the solar panels are going to produce. So certainly the orientation of the roof affects the production. We prefer to have the solar panels as close to south as possible. If it's a little southwest or southeast, it doesn't make a big difference. We can even go further away from south, depending on how steep the roof is. It does affect the productivity, but it's not necessarily a deal killer. So with this information, we can project how much electricity the solar panels are going to produce. In this case, we're projecting just about 17,500 kilowatt hours per year. And so depending on this customer's electric usage, we can say, oh, that's the right amount, or we need to add a few more panels, or we can take off a few panels to try and get to that target amount. Once we have this information, we can put together what we call our budgetary calculations or our ballpark estimate. Based on this, we can have the number of solar panels, how many watts per solar panels gives us the overall system size in DC electricity. Based on that, we can come up with an installed system price. So when we give someone an installed system price, that includes everything. We try to include it all, soup to nuts. So that includes all the interconnection paperwork with the utility, the permits from the township, the complete installation, all the materials, inspections afterwards, all the paperwork, and all the other things that go into it. The big incentive right now is the big economic incentive from the government for installing solar panels is a federal tax credit. This slide is a little old. The tax credit is down to 26% for systems installed this year. For systems installed next year, it actually drops down again to 22%. So, and then the year after that, this is slated to go away, to go down to 0 for residential installations. So I know that probably many of you are anxiously watching the vote counting. So depending on who wins the presidential election, that might change with different policies next year. But right now it's slated to go down to 22% next year and then go away the year after that. So that comes up with the net cost of the installation after taking into account those incentives. We can calculate the we can project the electrical production, and that will give us a value of the savings of the electricity that you'll see on your PICO bill. In addition, there are these things called SRECs, S-R-E-C, is Solar Renewable Energy Credit. Those are certificates that your system earns for producing electricity from a renewable resource. This is another way that the government incentivizes solar installations or electricity produced from renewable resources. Each of these SRECs represents a block of electricity of 1,000 kilowatt hours. These certificates can be bought and sold just like stock certificates. So depending on how big your system is, you produce these SRECs, you sell them on the SREC market, it's like a stock market, and that gives you a little extra income to help offset the cost of the solar panels. So in Pennsylvania, SRECs really aren't worth too much. I think they're actually up to about $20 or maybe $25 right now. So it gives you a little bit of payback on the solar panels, but you compare that to New Jersey, where they have much more friendly solar policies, and those right now are worth $91 for residences in New Jersey. So certainly a big difference. New Jersey is a solar friendly state. Pennsylvania is more of a fossil fuel friendly state with certainly the large natural gas lobbying efforts in our area. So you add all these up, it gives you an amount of savings on per month and per year, gives you a ballpark of 25 years, how much money you'll save during those 25 years. We come up with 25 years because the solar panels themselves have a warranty of 25 years. So you know you're guaranteed what they're going to produce over those 25 years. They certainly will last longer than 25 years, but the 25 years is the period of warranty. We also give you an idea of how long this system or when the system is going to pay for itself. That means that if you were to just pay for this installation out of savings, take money out of your bank account and pay for it, the savings that you see on your electric bill plus the SREC income should pay you back in about 8 years. This number varies, certainly, depending on how big your system is. There are economies of scale in installation. So the bigger the system, the faster this payback is. That also will have to take into account shade, orientation, all those other factors that affect the production of the system. So this gives us a return on investment. Typically in Pennsylvania, we see a return on investment of someplace between 10 to 15%, which is, you compare that to money in your bank account or certificates of deposit or anything like that. And it certainly is a pretty good return on investment. Just trying to see here if we have any questions in the chat. There was a question in the chat, sorry. Do the panels that track the sun use the electricity they generate directly, or is the motor wired into the building? So this is a question from Diane. Thanks, Diane. To go back to that tracking type of racking, it's kind of hard to say where the electricity itself comes from. Typically, the electricity from the solar panels go first to any of the loads that need it at the house or building. So it would come from the solar panels themselves. So while the sun is out and the rack is moving to follow the sun, that electricity would come from the solar panels themselves. If you can imagine, at the end of the day, those solar panels are facing west and the sun goes down, then the solar panels stop producing electricity. During the night, that rack will rotate back to face east. So that way in the morning when the sun comes up, it's ready to capture that energy from the sun. So when the rack rotates back to the east, that would be electricity from the utility that causes that action. But really, whether it comes from the solar panels themselves or it comes from the utilities, it doesn't really matter, because during the times of the day that your solar panels are producing more than what you need, it's the same. It's a one-for-one exchange, I guess is what I should say, that the electricity from your solar panels, whether it's used in the building or exported to Pico, is worth the same amount as comes in from Pico. So when you're overproducing during the day, whether that goes to move the racks or it goes sent out to Pico and one of your neighbors uses it, it's the same as at nighttime when it comes in from Pico, and that causes the racks to move. Hope that answers the question. Okay. So when we come up with our ballpark, our budgetary calculations here, we talk to the customer and they say, that looks interesting. What's the next step? The next step is we do what's called a site survey. So we have someone come out and actually go to where the solar panels are going to be installed, either up on the roof or with a ground mount, wherever that ground mount is going to be. And we take measurements to make sure that the solar panels are going to fit the way we projected that they would. And we also do what's called a shade analysis. So we want to make sure that any trees or anything else that are going to cast shade on the solar panels, we've taken that into account correctly in our projections of what the solar panels are going to produce. So we have a device called a solar pathfinder. It has a diagram like this. The semicircles that go across it are the sun paths for the different months of the year. So in December, January, in the wintertime, the sun is lower in the sky. And in the summertime, the sun is higher in the sky. The lines that go this way are the hours of the day. So this is the morning, this is the afternoon. We take this device with this diagram to where the solar panels are going to go. And there is a dome that goes over the top of this diagram. We can see reflections in this dome, and that will let us know what is going to cause shade during what times of the day and what part of the year. So for example, in this diagram here, there's a tree over towards this side of the roof. That's what this reflection is. Another tree over here, another tree over here. So we can take a picture of that reflection in the dome. We can trace that reflection where those shadows intersect these sun paths, we know that that is going to hurt the production of the solar panels. We take this picture, put it in a computer program, and with this line traced out, it will spit out a report month by month of what the how the solar panels are going to produce and how they're going to be affected by the shade. So you can see here in the wintertime, in the dead of winter, in December and January, because there's the shade here and shade here, the solar panels are going to be working at about 80% compared to what they would be producing if there were no shade. Whereas in the summertime, which are these sun paths down here, we're close to 100% production because there's very little shade. It's just a little bit here at the beginning of the day and a little bit here at the end of the day. So that helps us confirm what our ballpark estimate here was of the amount of electricity produced. So we can be confident that if we're going to install solar panels here, it is going to produce what we projected. Once the system is installed, there is a monitoring setup. So you can look at either on a website or at an app on your phone and see exactly what your solar panels are doing. So this is a diagram of solar panels installed on a roof. You can see panel by panel what they're producing. You can get a time-lapse view. So this is a look over the past 5 days. You can see that this was a nice sunny day. What this is a time-lapse. So in the morning, this is when the sun comes up. Then during the day, this is the production. And then at night, it goes back down. So this was a nice sunny day. This was a very cloudy day. This was a partly cloudy day where you can see it goes up and down. And again, this is back to a nice sunny day. With this type of monitoring, you can see the history, you can get alerts. So if there's ever a problem with one of the solar panels, you'd get an email saying, hey, we expected this production, but didn't see it, or stuff like that. We get those too, so we can keep an eye on it. Solar panels are very reliable. As I mentioned before, they have a 25-year warranty. The manufacturers couldn't give such a long warranty if they weren't so reliable. So it's very rare that we get any alerts with any problems, but we can keep an eye on it. So just to make sure, because it is a big investment, and want to make sure that it's doing what they're supposed to be doing. This is another version. So this monitoring is based, is from the microinverters that I talked about earlier. This monitoring here is from the string inverters, like what are installed at Audubon Society. So this is what, once we're able to turn that system on, which hopefully will be within the next few weeks, this will be what you can see to monitor the production at the Audubon Society. These are day by day for the past month, how much electricity was produced, how much electricity was produced over the lifetime. In addition, I don't have a picture of it, but you'll be able to, there's a layout tab so you can see panel by panel what's going on, as well as the alerts and other stuff that I had mentioned. I think that's about all I have for right now to show that I was planning on going over to talk about how the systems work, but certainly I'm welcome to open it up and answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. If anyone has questions, you can either type them in the chat, or if you want to just unmute yourself, you can ask as well. But while we're waiting on that, I know, Mark, I mean, obviously, you know, people's houses are a really important part of for solar, but I don't know if you can speak at all, and if you can't, that's fine too. I know there's legislation trying to get passed in Pennsylvania about community solar. How would that work differently from people having, you know, solar on their own house?
Right. Community solar is a great possibility for solar panels. Right now in Pennsylvania, it's not available. It's illegal. As you mentioned, they're trying to get some legislation passed to make it possible. So what community solar is rather than having solar panels on your own house or building, you would have one big solar panel installation someplace. It might be local, might be far away. It really can vary. And essentially, you would own a share of that solar panel installation. So when those solar panels generate electricity, it would work similar to the way you have it on your house, but since they're far away, you would just see the production from those solar panels get applied to your electric bill. This would be great for people who live in apartment buildings or don't own their own homes, or have a house where they can't have solar panels because of the homeowners association or because there's lots of trees or anything like that. They can decide, oh, well, I want to buy a share of this community solar installation and get credit for the electricity from those solar panels and just have it appear, get it applied to my PICO bill. In New Jersey, it is possible to have community solar right now. They just started the program, so they have just a few pilot installations going on, but we expect to see that expand pretty quickly. Other states in the country do have community solar, and it is great. So it's just a way to make it possible for more people to be able to take advantage of the renewable energy.
Great. No one else has questions. I'm just going to keep going. So,
Sure.
so here's a bigger question for you, Mark. We're going to be talking about in different weeks. We're going to talk about wind, and we're talking about geothermal. So if you had to sell us on doing solar as opposed to some other kind of renewable energy, what would you tell us?
Well, I would tell you that every type of renewable energy is great. Each type has its own benefits and costs, but the benefits of solar energy are there's no moving parts. It's very reliable, easy to project what the solar panels are going to produce, because there's no moving parts, they are going to last for a long time with very little operating costs, maintenance or anything like that. Wind is a great renewable resource. One of the downsides is there are moving parts, so the maintenance costs are higher. In addition, how do I say it? It's not as easily sited. You really need a place that has a lot of wind to make it make sense. Kind of the rule of thumb is if the wind isn't strong enough, steady enough to really be annoying, then it doesn't make economic sense to have windmills. A lot of people in this area do ask us about windmills, and it really just the wind isn't strong enough, constant enough in this area to make it make sense. You really need a very tall tower to get up above the trees and have a big open area. And even then, it's just hard to find a space that makes sense. So that's why you see a lot of wind out in the prairies or in certain mountain areas where there's a pass that kind of funnels the wind through, that you'll see a lot of windmills. But in this area, it's just very hard to make it make sense. Did that answer the question, or was another?
No, that was okay. Perfect. And I think, and we ran into some of these things too. I know when we were talking about doing this project, we looked into geothermal, which is a very, very cool thing, but a little bit out of our price range. And we also like the fact, honestly, that with the solar, it could be a great education tool for us. So we wanted people to be able to see it. And one of the great parts of geothermal is that you can't see it. So
right. With geothermal, geothermal meaning a ground source heat pump. With geothermal, really the only application for that is heating and cooling. So it's definitely a very efficient way to heat and cool your building, but it doesn't generate electricity. So it's good for what it does in terms of the heating and cooling, but that's all it does. So you could pair the geothermal with solar panels and use the electricity from the solar panels to run the geothermal, which is, we definitely have a lot of customers that do that, and that gets them to a net zero, or actually a net production of renewable energy for their house. But the geothermal is really just only for heating and cooling.
Yeah, absolutely. Alrighty. Jim actually put in the chat, and I should know these things, but I don't. He wants to know what the specifics are for the system that you put on our building. The number of panels, electric output.
Okay.
This is a picture of this, by the way, in case anyone doesn't know what this picture is.
Yeah. So this picture is the building. As you can see, I think it looks pretty nice on the building. Let me see if I can find the. Let's see. I'm looking for the ballpark projections that I had put together for the. Yeah, I don't have it.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how big the system is.
You guys hear me?
Right. So the system itself is 91 solar panels. Each solar panel produces 385 watts. So the DC system size is just over 35 kilowatts. So 35,000 watts.
I think Dara was trying to chime in too.
Yes, if Dara's there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. My mic goes in and out, so I don't know always if people can hear me. Yeah, it's projected to generate around 39,000 kilowatt hours of electricity a year, which was about 78% of your current annual electricity usage.
Of the projected usage.
I don't remember what number we were starting with. We were guesstimating you would be using 50,000 kilowatt hours a year. I don't remember where that number came from, if that was a number based on your current usage plus some additional new usages that you were going to be adding in the building, but projected to generate around 39,000 kilowatt hours of electricity a year.
Yeah,
Right,
I think those were
their
predictions that we had put
current
out.
annual usage is around 15,000.
Oh,
So
right.
we definitely oversized the system, as I mentioned, because they are planning on adding some HVAC equipment that is going to increase their electric usage and ideally reduce their I don't know if they use propane or natural gas there, whatever.
We use propane for heating. So yeah. So the idea was that we really wanted to make sure that we were reducing our carbon footprint. So we put in a bigger solar system, and we're going to hopefully, probably not all at once, but at least slowly switch over all of our heating and add in some cooling that will run off of the electric as well. And hopefully get us off of at least the majority of our propane. All right, excellent. Well, wonderful. If no one has any other questions, I want to thank Mark so much. As I said before, we absolutely love our new system. You saw it, it looks beautiful. We're really excited to hopefully start having more people back on site so that we can start using it as a really important teaching tool as well. And the people from Exact, just a complete plug for them. They were absolutely wonderful people. We loved having them around, and they did a great job of putting it in, and they were so fast. It was really great. So thank you guys so much for doing this. Hopefully everyone will join us next week, where, as I said, we're going to be talking about wind energy and its relation to birds as well. So hopefully you'll join us for that. If you want to share this with anyone, it will be again up on our YouTube page, probably in a couple of days, and you'll be able to share it from there. So thank you all so much. Everyone has a great day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.